Machine here, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel. 20-minute video for 2 minutes worth of content. Gold.
OG winning TI8, the International 8, wasn't just a great storyline and a fantastic display of skill and determination, fortitude, ability to come back. It was also insanely unlikely. Like, it is legitimately one of the most ridiculous underdog stories I've seen in any esport in all of esports history. People use this cliche of, oh, you wouldn't believe it if it was in a movie. No, the odds are so stacked against this team having this kind of performance and result that you absolutely would not even conceive of it as the storyline for a movie. Like, you'd actually use the artistic license of making a movie to tune up some parts of the script and make it a bit more plausible, actually, and make it seem like it makes more sense. It's like that old line, like the difference between fiction and reality is fiction has to make sense. So to really understand how ridiculous this run was, you have to know something about the history of the OG squad. So let's go through some of that. So this was a team that came out of a squad, basically the same players at the time they became OG, that had been called Monkey Business. And this was the team based around Fly and No-Tail, the support players most notably, who'd been teammates in Fnatic, which had been one of the best European teams. And they had Miracle, a guy from Jordan, who was coming out of basically solo queue, just coming out of playing matchmaking games, but had incredibly high MMR. And this was the time when people started scouting those sorts of players. So Miracle went to the Monkey Business team. Weeha went to Team Secret with Eternal Envy. But at this point in time, the team actually had No-Tail, who at the time was under the name Big Daddy, where he'd done the name change, playing as the mid laner. And Miracle was a carry or mid laner, depending on where they wanted to swap him to. Off lane was Moon Meander. Then they had as their supports Crit and Fly. Fly at this point in time being the 5 position, Crit obviously famously a 4 position player, currently plays for Evil Geniuses, and obviously that's a key part of this story. So at the time, No-Tail actually was swapping up in his career and becoming one of the cores, becoming a mid laner, a carry position, depending on what they needed, instead of the support that he'd played in Fnatic, in Cloud9, in Secret. So this team, when they were Monkey Business, had already shown some promise. They then made this squad called OG, a new organization with backing behind it. And this was when, after TI5 in the, coming into the autumn of 2015, Valve had introduced the major system. And at that point in time, the majors were I think there was 3 additional majors as well as the international. And these were going to be Valve-funded tournaments with big prize purses, but they were the next biggest tournaments after the international. So even though it was never true that it was just the international, nothing else in Dota and just tiny lands, it was the case that the drop-off from the international, its prestige and its prize money was massive. And so this major system added something between the international and the rest of the open circuits. It was very meaningful, and crucially, winning majors got you a very good chance of getting one of those invites to the international. And OG immediately showed themselves to be a strong team at the majors. They won the Frankfurt major. They later on, 7 months later, they didn't do very well at the Shanghai major. They were able to win the Manila major. So they won 2 out of the 3 majors. Unsurprisingly, they were invited to the International 6. At the International 6, they underwhelmed. I mean, this is a team where they were coming in really strong. They'd won the first major, sure, ages ago, but they'd won the Manila major, I think 2 months prior to TI6. Right before TI6, they'd won ESL 1 Frankfurt. That was a month and a half before TI6. They came in as a team at the very minimum expected to have a deep finish, and they didn't even finish top 8. So as is tradition with many teams in Dota, there was a shuffle after the major, after the international rather. So version 2 of OG saw Moon Meander leave. He later went to DC, Digital Chaos. Crit and Miracle left as well. And then in came Jerax, the Finnish player, S4, formerly of Alliance, obviously, in Secret, and Anna, who actually had barely been a pro player. He'd been like a backup in Invictus Gaming briefly. So in this squad, you still had No-Tail as the carry. Now you had Anna, this fairly inexperienced player, as mid laner. S4 was playing off lane now, famous mid laner, obviously. Jerax was the 4 position, replacing Crit, and Fly, still the captain at position 5. It didn't matter that they changed out 3 players from the lineup. The performances at the majors continued. They won the Boston major, the first major right after TI. They came second DAC, not a major, but another really big tournament. somewhere between the majors and the international. Obviously, before the majors, it was the other big tournament. Finished second there. Kiev major, they won that major as well. So at this point in time, they've already won 4 majors, admittedly with different lineups. Now, for this team, they did have a drop in form coming into TI. So people were a bit more up and down of like, will they be really strong like they were the majors? Will they not be as good as they have in recent form? They ended up having, at the time, their best placing at TI7, but it was still only top 8. They got eliminated. They had to come through the lower bracket and they got eliminated much earlier than you would have expected. They didn't have a performance in line with what they did at the majors. So you're seeing the theme here is, doesn't matter what they do at the majors where they're very good, they always underperform at TI, and as a result, good players leave their team. So then you have version 3 of OG, which is where Anna leaves to go on like a sabbatical for a year, and in comes Resolution, a player who actually a year earlier, not TI7, TI6, had an amazing run with Digital Chaos, unexpectedly underdog run. He'd finished second at that tournament with them. So in came Resolution, and he just pops straight in and plays in the place of Anna, and they have the same squad as they had before. And you know what? Results pick up again. They win MDL Macau, which technically was a major, but this is when we had the new major system where it was like loads of premier tournaments were now majors, and then they had minors as well. So it wasn't just 3 majors or 2 or 3 majors anymore. There were loads of majors, but okay, still win another major. After this, results start to drop. They won a major, they had top 4 at Dota Summer 8. Then the results start to drop off heavily. ESL1 Katowice the next year, only top 8. Bucharest major. The majors are where they've always performed. 9th to 11th place. Really poor performance. So before they even get to have a TI and test this team out, there are roster changes. Resolution leaves the team. Because he leaves the team and they're in a position where they can't really see who they're going to get, they bring in their coach, who you can call him mad, fucking mad, whatever you want to call him, a decorated player from the French scene who'd played Dota 2 as a professional, but not someone who you look at and you say, this is going to work as a position. Obviously, you can't replace a player like Resolution. And the results go to shit. Dream League Season 9, 5th to 6th. DAC, the Dota 2 Asia Championship, a big tournament. Top 14, 13th to 14th place. Epicenter XL, 5th to 6th. MDL Shangsha Major, 7th to 8th. ESL1 Birmingham. At this point, we're getting only a few months before TI. 5th to 6th. No top placings whatsoever. And then comes the betrayal. Comes the moment that shocked the world and basically seemed to be the final nail in the coffin, the signature on the death warrant of OG as a team that had any chance at TI, which was S4 and Fly left the team and went and joined Evil Geniuses, reuniting with Crit in terms of Fly. Now, Fly was the captain of this team. In fact, a lot of people not only put it on No Tail and Fly's shoulders, but they gave Fly a lot of credit for how that team played, how they drafted, how they worked as a squad, and their ability to work with the newer players and still find success at the majors. So him leaving really did seem like a death knell for the team. Now, S4, obviously he's someone in the past who was a champion, had been in many elite teams, Alliance, Secret, OG. When he leaves, again, this is not a player that you can just replace, especially because he's playing the offlane now. You're bringing in your coach, who was a support player before. How's that going to work? And even worse, these players left just before the China Dota 2 Super Major, a tournament designed to be the end of the big Dota Pro circuit, which had 1.5 times the prize money of any of the other majors. It had $1.5 million prize purse instead of $1 million, and had the most tournaments on offer for the circuit to qualify for TI of any of the tournaments in the circuit. And so because these players left, actually, OG's invite was essentially revoked from the Super Major, and they didn't get to play at the last big tournament. So there weren't going to be a team that was making it to TI. They would have to go through the qualification system. With these players departing, in came 2 players. They brought Anna back, who'd previously been a member, and they brought Thorin in, a player who would never been a pro. So No Tail swapped from the 1 position to the 5 position, hard support. Fucking Mad took on the off lane. Anna, who'd been out of the game for a year, took on the 102. Thorin also took on a 102. They're bringing in an absolutely inexperienced carry-on mid who's never played as a pro before, but has some talent. Now, interesting detail. No Tail had played as a carry during the OG era when they're winning the majors. Yes, he'd been a support in Fnatic and Secret and Cloud9. Thought it was years ago, though. fucking mad, was the coach of the team when they were winning the majors. Hadn't been a player for years and years. Now, he'd been a good support player, 4-position player, like back in 2012. But after that, he'd seen very few big results. He'd been on one of the bad Alliance teams in 2015 that accomplished basically nothing. Now he's having to play the off role and in a very competitive meta of 2018. The team even had a LAN before the international with this lineup, which was the Red Bull Adrenaline, where they played an exhibition best of 5 against Immortals and lost 3-2. So there's no signs whatsoever that this is a team that can even compete at TI, never mind a deep finish. And hence, journalists who did previews were absolutely correct in saying, don't expect anything from this team. How can you? The best players have left. It's not a team that necessarily is going to be able to do anything. They've got inexperienced cores. But you know what? The players that left them seemed to fall on their feet. They won the Manila Masters right after Fly and S4 joined, therefore came into TI looking like one of the stronger teams. Also, you have to look at the history of it and consider OG's not a team you have a deep TI run in, since they'd never had a top 6 finish. S4 won his international, TI3 in Alliance, years before he was in OG. Resolution had his TI6 finals appearance 2 years before he was playing, or a year and a half or something before he was playing an OG. Miracle left OG, went and joined Team Liquid and won TI7. And Crit actually had his best ever TI performance this year in Evil Geniuses, finishing 3rd place. Never had a finish like that in OG. So coming into TI8, there's still no reason to expect anything from this team. Sure, they qualify online. Okay, that's a promising sign. In the group though, they only go 9-7, not a great record. And in fact, they started 1-5. They were looking really poor. They lost to Fly and Crit's EG and S4's EG. They lost to Team Liquid, who were number 2 in the Dota Pro circuit. Then they went on an inspired run in the group stage, though. They've won 8 out of their next 10 games. They were able to beat Mineski, who was number 5 in the DPC. They were able to beat VGJ.Thunder, who were number 8 in the DPC. Notably, this got them, even though they crept into it, into the upper bracket of the main event, which is the key spot you want to be in. Now, the first round opponent was VGJ.Storm, the sister team of VGJ.Thunder, which was the NA squad, basically. Notably, had Resolution on, former player of theirs. They 2-0'd them. This was a squad that had topped their group, 12-4 record. 3rd best overall record in the group stage of TI. Didn't matter, 2-0'd them. Moving on to the upper bracket semi-finals, they get the rematch against Evil Geniuses. The team that those players who left them are playing for, 3 of their former players. The team that had beaten them in the group stage. No one should be expecting that this team's going to win now. EG had just took care of Secret, number 4 in the DPC, 2-0 on them, the upper bracket quarterfinals. Doesn't matter. Great series, 3-game series. Somehow OG gets the upset. Fair enough. You can have an upset sometimes. They know some of the players well. These things can happen, right? You played them once, maybe you figured something out about them. Upper bracket final, they play PSG.LGD, the best Chinese team, number 3 on the DPC, the Dota Pro circuit, a team that had just beaten Virtus Pro and Team Liquid 2-0 each, 2 of the strongest teams this year, 2 teams with a pretty good chance to go deep at this tournament. Didn't matter. This series was another nail-biter, another 3-game series. Game 3 had an insane end. LGD absolutely must have felt like they could have won this game. Didn't matter. The clutch factor was there. The late-game factor was there for OG. They managed to win the series. They're in the final. In the final, though, it doesn't matter because they end up facing off again PSG.LGD again, and this time it's a best of 5 with no advantage. So you would think if LGD's the better team, LGD's look like a really strong team the whole tournament, really strong laning, incredibly skilled players who seemingly are destined to win TI. This seems like, right, now it's OG's time to lose finally, because LGD's just taking care of EG 2-0 in the lower bracket. So you come into the series, PSG is doing the right thing. They're drafting all these strong lanes. They're getting ahead early. They're getting ganks off. OG, on the other hand, is drafting for the late game. They're drafting scaling shit. And they're drafting comfort picks. They're picking stuff that isn't even being picked in the tournament or is barely being picked or stuff that like isn't played in the meta, but they play it, or famously it's one of their signature champions. And somehow they're making it work. This final alone was impossible. These picks are not supposed to work. Getting behind is not supposed to work. This was one of the years, you heard the people on the analyst desk saying, this was one of the years where draft is supposed to be the most important, where the meta's about getting ahead in lane, about having a lane in phase. Instead Instead, OG is drafting and playing as if, right, well, we're not going to get ahead in the laning phase. We're not going to win laning phase. Some of these teams are going to get ahead of us, but we're going to have to find a way to come back late, to have heroes that let us do that, picks that let us do that, and picks that we play so uniquely well that they'll get through in the draft, but we're able to do something other people were unable to. And so the games that the team wins, especially on the back end of this series, are insane comebacks. These are games you should not be able to win, and especially not against a team as good as LGD and who's as far ahead as LGD is, with their best players popping off completely. So you think of some of the things that happened in this series. You had Mad on the axe in game 4. He basically, by keeping himself in the game early on with all those kills, allowed them a chance to not lose that tournament and just get beaten 3-1. Maybe he was on 20, he managed 22 kills over this game, completely rolling, but Axe kept them in the game long enough that they could do enough insane late game shit in team fights to win this series. Obviously, Anna was a massive performance on the Phantom Lancer. Then you come into game 5. Game 5, Anna again is one. They get so far behind. LGD's got so many kills early on. Everything's looking primed. Maybe's rolling. Fi's looking super sick. He's way ahead of the other supports in the game. Everything's looking primed again for LGD to close the series out. But Anna carries another game in the series. Also, people didn't notice this. I think it was game 4 was the one where he did the insane, like, he had to sell items in the shop to quickly be able to buy back and go into a fight to give them a chance to actually win, which is part of their insane comeback. People missed that. I missed it myself because it was such a nuanced aspect. But if he doesn't do this like clutch move, they don't have any chance to win that game. They're out of the tournament. Then you go to game 5. He was so key, them getting him online late in the game. Then you think about Jerax's performance. His Rubik steals in that final game are basically what allowed them to even stay alive in the game and then later to have a chance to win. Stole the boat, stole the Earthshaker. His Monkey King play in game 1, another game they won. There's so many times he's just living on the edge where if he gets caught once, if he gets killed in the right spot, it's just almost going to be game over for them. That would be LGD's impetus to win the game. Somehow he's coming up with the clutch players on these heroes. So you think about the circumstances that OG wins in. So they win TI when they've got No Tail as a support, something he hasn't done for years and years, and looked at his best as one of the carry cores. They win TI without Fly, their talismanic, iconic captain who's partnered with No Tail, and in theory they're best buds and they're never going to leave each other and we're going to win together and we made OG together to win. Do it without him, beating him even. They win, Mad wins TI as a player and in the off lane, 3 years after retiring from pro play, fairly unceremoniously without big performances, and where he'd been a support player, 4-position player, and has a critical performance in the final in that game 4 to give him a chance to even win the series. Then you look at Thorin, a guy who wins the international weeks after becoming a pro, and who many times did get behind in lane, couldn't always get online, looked at times like he was completely out of the game, useless, but found a way to get back into the game. They found a way to make him useful, to give him a chance, to give him some space, and he was able to perform. Now, he wasn't one of the best players in the tournament, but what a solid performance by a rookie. Then you look at Jerax, a guy everyone's always known was really skilled, but usually on his picks, well, what a perfect team to play in, right? Where they're giving him his picks, they're saying, fuck the meta, fuck what the other team's drafting, we're picking what we want, we're just going to find a way to make something work, even though we can't have a set game plan as to how to win from the laning phase and then what we're going to do and who we're going to catch. We're going to have to play like kind of on the fly. We're going to have to read things as we go, and that was exactly the kind of world you want to play with Jerax in, where he wins in Jerax fashion, playing his heroes, even using how fitting his signature rubric for that final 5th game and playing such an integral role in it to win them the championship. This was the team, OG, that was infamous for winning majors, being amazing outside the TI, but never performing at the big one, never delivering on that at the international. They didn't even win the international with their best players or their best lineups in history. They won with a makeshift lineup. They didn't even choose. They were basically forced into playing, including the coach becoming an active player again after just initially being a stand-in. And that's when they win the international. That's beyond fairy tale stuff. Everything about this story sounds like bullshit, sounds like it shouldn't be possible. It just makes you wonder, how do these things happen? But what an amazing performance by OG and its players. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Cesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.